Hello, everyone, and welcome to another unsettling episode of Dearest Mother's Darkest Secrets. I am your host, Teri True Crime, and today we're diving into a case that's as heartbreaking as it is horrifying. It is a story that shocked the nation and left a scar on everyone who's heard it. In this episode, we are exploring the tragic and chilling case of Jennifer and Sarah Hart, a couple who appeared to be the perfect loving parents on the surface, but behind closed doors harbored a dark and twisted secret. It's a story of manipulation, control, and ultimately a horrifying act that ended the lives of six innocent children. The Hart family was known for their picture perfect appearances on social media, photos filled with smiles, love, and adventure. But beneath that carefully curated image laid a reality filled with abuse, neglect, and a desperate attempt to maintain a facade at any cost. And as we peel back the layers of this case, we'll uncover the disturbing truth behind the Hart family's tragic journey. It's a story that forces us to question the very nature of trust, the impact of appearances, and the lengths some will go to hide their darkest secrets. So pour yourself a glass of wine, settle in, and prepare for a harrowing tale that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about family and love. This is the story of Jennifer and Sarah Hart, a case that reminds us that sometimes the most dangerous places are the ones that seem the safest. Here we go. The story of Jennifer and Sarah Hart is deeply tragic and a troubling account of a family whose outward appearance of love and compassion hid a dark and abusive reality. The lives of six adopted children, Marcus, Hannah, Devante, Jeremiah, Abigail, and Sierra, were tragically cut short when their adoptive mothers drove their SUV off of a cliff in Mendocino County, California on March 26, 2018. This horrific act later was determined to be a murder suicide, and it exposed not only the harrowing abuse the children endured, but also significant failures of Child Protective Services, also known as CPS, across multiple states. Prior to adopting their six children, the Harts were foster parents to a 15-year-old girl. A week before their first three adopted children were due to arrive, the Harts dropped off their foster daughter at a scheduled therapist appointment. The therapist then had to inform the girls that the Harts would not be coming back for her. Guys, that is horrifying in itself. And I don't know why CPS or the adoption agency, whoever was involved, did not see that as a red flag. You've been fostering a child and you don't even have the respect for that child to tell them you're leaving them at the therapist and they will never see you again. To me, that should have stopped the adoption, in my opinion. Jennifer and Sarah Hart adopted their six children, three sibling groups, from the Texas foster care system between 2006 and 2008. The children, all of whom were African American, had troubled backgrounds and had experienced early trauma before being placed with the Harts. These children thought their lives were going to change for the better. Member of Jennifer's and Sarah's family stated that the two women distanced themselves from them. although both families were accepting of their sexual orientation, and that had nothing to do with the estrangement. Jennifer estranged herself from her father after 2001. State government reports stated that the couple cut off contact with their relatives because of criticism about their parenting style. Marcus, the eldest, was 19 years old at the time of his death. He was described by those who knew him as a quiet and reserved young man. Devante, the most well known of the siblings due to the viral hug photo, was 15 years old and had been adopted with his siblings Jeremiah 14, Sierra 12, Abigail 14, and Hannah 16 were adopted together as well. Despite their early struggles, the children were seen as having great potential, but their time with the Harts turned out to be far from the fresh start they deserved. Beneath the surface of this seemingly happy family, the Hart children were subjected to severe abuse and neglect. Multiple reports and disturbing accounts from neighbors and educators painted a grim picture of life inside the Hart home. Hannah reportedly told a school nurse that she had not eaten all day. Sarah claimed that Hannah was merely playing the food card and recommended that she just be given water. Really? And the school didn't find that immediately disturbing? Soon afterwards, all 6 children were taken out of public schools and were homeschooled from then on. Yeah, because they didn't want everyone to know that they were horrible monsters. The children were often seen as extremely thin and underweight. Some neighbors reported that the children would beg for food, sometimes asking for scraps or leftovers. Devante, in particular, had asked neighbors for food on several occasions. In one instance, he knocked on a neighbor's door early in the morning asking for something to eat and stating that his mother's would withhold food as a form of punishment. He also requested that the neighbors not tell his mothers out of fear of retribution. Guys, that is heartbreaking, okay? That is beyond comprehension. Why would you adopt these children if this was what you're going to do? The children were also subjected to harsh physical punishment. In 2011, Sarah Hart pleaded guilty to charges of domestic assault in Minnesota after Abigail was found with bruises. Sarah admitted to spanking the child, but the punishment was described by Abigail as far more severe than a typical spanking. There were also reports that the children were forced to lie on the ground and were beaten, as well as other forms of physical and emotional abuse. Why in the hell the courts did not step in when she was charged with child abuse and not put them under severe surveillance or remove the children? I do not understand. Do not understand. And I will say, it's one of the reasons I no longer am a CASA advocate because the CPS and judicial system in Texas does not always do what's in the best interest of the child. The children were kept isolated from the outside world with limited social interaction. They were homeschooled, which further limited their contact with others who might have noticed the signs of abuse. Neighbors noted that the children rarely played outside and often appeared frightened and very wary. The isolation was so severe that the children were not allowed to be outside alone, and they were only seen together as a group, often standing in a row with forcible smiles. Oh, guys, this makes me think of the case out of California with the Turpin children, is immediately what that makes me think of. In 2017, Hannah Hart made a desperate attempt to escape the abuse. She jumped out of a second-story window of the family home in Woodland, Washington, and ran to the home of Bruce and Dana DeKalb, family neighbors. When she arrived, she was hysterical, pleading for help and claiming that Jennifer and Sarah were abusive. Hannah also revealed that they were often deprived of food. Despite this terrifying encounter, the Cabs later reported that Jennifer Hart came to their home to retrieve Hannah and that she attempted to downplay the incident as a misunderstanding. But Hannah was visibly terrified. But guys, the situation was reported, but it was never thoroughly investigated by authorities, which is a problem. Devante, whose image had once symbolized hope and unity, also made attempts to alert others to the abuse. In addition to his pleas for food, Devante reportedly told others that the Harts were racist and treated the children harshly, particularly around issues of race and discipline. Despite his cries for help, his words were largely dismissed or not taken seriously enough to prompt immediate action. Guys, these children were not failed once, not twice, three times. They were failed so many times. The Hart's children's tragic deaths brought to light the systematic failures within the CPS system that allowed the abuse to continue and go unchecked. The case underscored the deficiencies in the child welfare system, particularly the lack of communication between states and the inability to act decisively when children's lives were in danger. CPS in various states received multiple reports of abuse concerning the Hart family. Guys, multiple states failed, not just Texas, multiple states. And despite these reports, including alarming allegations of food deprivation, physical abuse, and isolation, CPS did not remove the children from the Hart's custody. The reports were often met with a cursory investigation that failed to uncover the full extent of the abuse. CPS, you have the death of 6 children on you. Just gonna say it. You didn't cause the death. Jennifer and Sarah did, but you failed to protect those children. Several red flags were present that should have prompted stronger intervention. For example, Sarah Hart's conviction for domestic assault, combined with repeated reports of malnourishment and emotional distress. Those should have been sufficient to remove the children from the home. Yet, as I've said, the children were allowed to remain with the Harts. And guys, that decision ultimately proved to be fatal. When CPS did visit the Harts' home, the investigations were inadequate. The Harts were given advance notice of visits, which allowed them to prepare and present a facade of a happy family. Guys, it allows them to threaten these children, okay, and to stock the pantry full of all the kids' favorite foods. It allows them to be fake. Moreover, there was little to no follow up on the more serious allegations, such as Hannah's escape and Devante's pleas for food. That left these children trapped in an abusive environment. The Hart's frequent relocation across state lines, first from Texas to Minnesota to Oregon and then to Washington, allowed them to evade consistent oversight by CPS. The lack of communication and coordination between state agencies meant that each new CPS investigation started from scratch, with little consideration given to their troubled history. Guys, I want you to stop and think about that. If someone breaks the law in Washington and they come to Texas and break the law, when they put the person's name and date of birth into the system, they immediately see that this person has a troubled past. It'll show from all of the states. Why do we not have something like that protecting our most vulnerable, the children? I do not understand that. Do not. And if somebody knows the answer, please message me. Leave it in the comments. I need to know. On March 26, 2018, after CPS in Washington state attempted to make contact with the family, Jennifer and Sarah took drastic and fatal action. They packed their 6 children into their SUV and drove from Washington state to Northern California. Investigators later determined that Jennifer, who was driving, intentionally accelerated the vehicle off of a cliff along the Pacific Coast Highway, plunging the family more than 100 feet to their deaths. Guys, think about that. That is an instant. That takes time. Those children were aware they were going off of a cliff and that they were going to crash. Think of the last few minutes and what crossed their minds. Because, guys, it horrifies me. The bodies of Jennifer, Sarah, and 5 of the children were found at the crash site. Devonte's body was never recovered, though he is presumed deceased. The investigation revealed that Jennifer had a blood alcohol level above the legal limit at the time of the crash, and both Jennifer and Sarah had high levels of antihistamines in their systems, which were also likely given to the children to maybe sedate them before the crash. So basically, Jennifer and Sarah had to use liquid courage for even themselves. Okay? Seriously, ladies, you are horrible people. The SUV's data recorder showed that the vehicle had stopped at the cliff's edge before accelerating, confirming that the crash was intentional. The deaths of the Hart children have left a lasting scar on the collective conscience of society. Their story is a stark reminder of the critical importance of vigilance and accountability within the child welfare system. The systematic failures that allowed Jennifer and Sarah to maintain custody of their children despite clear and repeated signs of abuse must serve as a catalyst for comprehensive reform. Guys, I don't care where you live, write to your state politicians and tell them they need to look into their CPS system. There is an urgent need for better communication between state agencies, more rigorous and unannounced investigations, and swift actions when children's lives are at risk. Guys, parole officers make unannounced visits to check on their parolees. Why in the hell wouldn't CPS make unannounced visits to check on children, especially children who cried out for help multiple times? The legacies of Marcus, Hannah, Devonte, Jeremiah, Abigail, and Sierra should be one that compels us to protect the most vulnerable members of society and ensure that no child falls through the cracks of a broken system again. Just one child falling through the cracks is too many. Here, 6 children fell through the cracks and lost their life. Also, think of that child that they fostered and that they just abandoned and caused more trauma. That brings us to the end of this deeply troubling episode. The story of Jennifer and Sarah Hart is one that defies understanding, and it's a devastating reminder of how appearances can be deceiving and how the most unimaginable horrors can be hidden in plain sight. And as we reflect on the tragic loss of 6 innocent lives, it's impossible not to feel a profound sense of sadness and anger. I'm pissed. These children deserved so much more than the fate that befell them. And their story is one that must never be forgotten. Thank you all for joining me today as we uncovered this heartbreaking case. It's stories like this that remind us of the importance of vigilance, awareness, and never taking things at face value, especially when it comes to the safety and well being of those most vulnerable. Now, if you found this episode impactful, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you never miss another episode of Dearest Mother's Darkest Secrets. Your support helps us continue to shed light on these dark and important stories. Join me next time as we dive into another case where the lines between love and cruelty are blurred beyond recognition. But until then, please take care of yourselves, stay vigilant, and remember to stay safe, watch out for crime, and enjoy your wine time. Till next time.